If you go through it, you see that it's very, very detailed. There is consideration for national and international concerns in whatever is happening in Nigeria. So, but unfortunately, the memorandum was, because they called for the memorandum when they were in 2021, when they were doing a constitutional amendment. This constitutional amendment that doesn't appear to always end. And the reason is because we have refused to address fundamental issues. That's why we always keep coming back to it. And a lot of funds will be retired. I remember under Ike Ekweremadu in 2014 or 2015 or so, about 7 billion was spent in constitutional amendment. So they called for memorandum. That was when we sent this memorandum in 2021, but it didn't see the light of day. Well, they kept it. But when this 10th National Assembly came, we had to touch the memorandum a bit again and resubmitted it to the National Assembly. And the memorandum simple is that we need to restructure Nigeria in line with the 6 geopolitical zones, so that each of those 6 geopolitical zones can become an autonomous, governing region. Mm-hmm. Just like you have, there is one United Kingdom, or if you like, you call it GB. There is one Great Britain, or one UK. And yet, there are Scots, there are Welsh, there are Irish, and there are English. Now you see four countries, if you like, in one huge nation, and 4 nations in one big country. So that was our interest, so that most of the problems that are facing us, we can begin to address them. And if you look at that memorandum, we looked at what can be touched, what can be put in various sections of the Constitution to ensure that, like in Section 2.1, where it says Nigeria is indivisible, we retained it, but we now added that the fact it will not, that provision should not foreclose anybody who wants to undertake a referendum to determine their own political, economic, and social existence. If you read the Ethiopian Constitution, for example, there is exit clause in the Ethiopian Constitution. Okay. There is exit clause. But many of the ethnic nationalities, they are not in the hurry to exit. Why? Because they are part of the discussion within the Ethiopian Union. So we slotted in a lot of things that can be used as an amendment, so that each of these regions, we also included, they should include this. Nigeria is a country of 6 regions with 36 states, but without prejudice to any other region that wants to either collapse some of the states or create more or do anything in line with the regional parliament to ensure better administration. And our idea is that if you do that, because I've said it on this platform severally, Nigeria appears to be the only federation that doesn't have federative units. Where are the federative units in Nigeria? You call it the states. No, the states were created by the center. And each time, we now operate a constitution that is so central. I've said this on this platform before. We are talking about Central Republic of Nigeria. We are no longer talking about a federal republic. And we also observe the fact that Nigeria began as a federation of 3 regions first. Then in 1963, after the referendum that took place in the Midwest, the Midwestern region was created, and I remember that Britain, Edward Longe, was in charge, was the one that conducted that referendum, and an overwhelming 89.something% voted for the creation of the Midwestern region. And in September, the Prime Minister took it to the House, and they passed it preparatory for the October 1st Republican Constitution, when the Queen will cease to be the in charge of judiciary in Nigeria. So That was how 4 regions came. And those 4 regions had 4 different constitutions and a federal constitution. If you look at the American Constitution, for example, American Constitution is very terse. By that I mean it's very small. T-A-R-S-E. You know, this is a parliament, so we speak facts and also to let people know. It's very terse. Why? Because the several states in America, all of them have their own constitution. There is one small state in America, it's about 2 million people, the state of Maine, M-A-I-N-E, is a state in America. And it's just about 2 million people or 1 point something million people. And they have their own constitution. They always elect a governor every now and then. So we submitted this memorandum to the National Assembly so that they can use the existing, which was part of what Ndibu submitted during the Abacha conference, where the constitutional listing was called. I remember that Sam Mbakwe, Dean Chukwemeka Odumegwu Chukwu, Alex Ekweme, actually, who read that thing, and several other people represented, and you know, they love it and they have accepted it. Yet, we are suggesting in a proposal, in that memorandum, that it is better that these zones become regions so that they can have regional governments and have fiscal charge, take fiscal charge, I mean FISCAL, to take monetary charge of their affairs, take charge of the land, take charge of the sea within their territory, and then they pay tax to the center. It will interest you to know, Yagazi and anyone listening to us, in 1953, it was derivation, not allocation. In 1953, derivation was 100%. In 1960, it was 50%. In 1963, in 1970, it came down to 45%. Then later, as they went down, it came down to 20%. Then 1.2%, then 1.5%, then before they came back to 13%, it was derivation originally. Now, this allocation where every day, every month, people will go to Abuja to go and collect oil money. When the world is trying to phase out even vehicles and engines that run with oil. And our people have refused to think. You remember many years ago, I don't know where you were then, many years ago, but it's more than close to 30 years. The Malaysian ambassador to Nigeria was just laughing. He said that one day crude oil will finish, but the palm oil will never finish. And you know that it was in the 1980s that Malaysia came here to collect palm produce. When I was in primary school, they said the world's largest producer of palm produce, Nigeria. Say it now. What you see is Malaysia. So we are not thinking so that we can do this. So that was what we have in our mind when we send this memorandum. So that because a lot of agitations are going on around the country, and if you factor national, local, national, and international political security, you will know that it is not going to be crayfish. It's not going to be tea party to divide Nigeria. So we are looking for a way where we can coexist, because the founders of Nigeria originally, they spent from 1950 to 1959, they kept having constitutional conferences because they knew that Nigeria either survives as a federation or it will not survive. And there are 2 ways of forming a federation, either by aggregation or by devolution. That's what happened on July 4, 1776, in that momentous night in Philadelphia, when 13 colonies in the United States came together and aggregated to form the United States of America. That's what the Nigerian people did when they met severally in Lagos, in London, to fashion a federal constitution so that we can exist together. You know that during that time, if you want to study medicine, you go to University of Ibadan. If you want to study engineering and things related, you come to the University of Nigeria. If you want to do very well in agricultural and other related matters, you go to EBU's, Zaria, just citing them as examples. And these people, knew that they had to, they aggregated to form a federation. Another way of forming a federation is to devolution. There is one Yoruba man, they call it Ademoleku. He said, he gave Nigeria one credo. He said, devolve or die. In other words, devolve power. Because the power became so centralized at the center now. And it was not like that originally. Because Murtala Mohammed that thought that Nigeria began in 1975. But Nigeria began way back. We should have gone to where we fell in 1966 after the coup and picked up. But they wanted this, central authority so that somebody can sit down in Abuja and be dictating what happens to me in Neke. Mm-hmm. So this is the purpose and the reason for this memorandum that was submitted to the National Assembly.
And you said it's not.
It was what led to that, because that memorandum was shared to. We took several copies of them and we shared them to the House of Reps, to the Senate, and they have read it. And it was what we, of course, with other people have been doing the same thing. But this memorandum was very punchy. Yeah. And that was what led to that debate in September, where the entire Southern senators supported regionalism, while nearly all the Northern senators rejected it, and for obvious reasons.
Anyway, I would like to know those reasons, because the arguments are rife. There are arguments, like I said, on the fiscal side now with the reforms that the president is trying to push in the taxation sector. But aside from that, I want to understand something also before we delve deeper. You said something about submitting this memorandum to the 9th Assembly, and now again in 2024, it's resubmitted to the 10th Assembly. And in the executive summary of this memorandum, there was something that was written there, that the failure of the National Assembly to amend the Constitution to insert recommendations contained in this memorandum is part of the problem of Nigeria. If you recognize this, you and those who put together this memorandum recognize this, then why submit this again to the 10th Assembly? Do you think it's going to get any different attention now? Because maybe a southern president.
The first time it was submitted, it was the debate on nationalism, regionalism, was never discussed. You didn't get it. It was not discussed. They didn't bring it up to the chamber. They just read the documents and that was it. They didn't discuss it. So it was this resubmission that led it. You know what it means to discuss something in a plenary?
Yeah, it's the first reading. Yeah.
You have come in with the mail as the speaker. And those of us who are members are just contributing. You know what it means to raise it, to bring it to plenary, and they discussed that. No, the debate has, that's the fact that the thing came up at plenary now sparked. It's no longer something that you hide. That's why we say we'll keep talking. So when it was submitted to the 9th Assembly, it was not discussed at plenary. So we now resubmitted it again this year, and that was what led to, in September now, they felt it was something that should be brought. You see, these things are, they are interaction, a lot of interests are involved, and that's why I don't know why anybody will want, to avoid, to ignore something or downplay or circumvent something that you know will help everybody. The truth is that no majority, in fact, the citizens of Nigeria are not enjoying the structure of the Nigerian state as presently put. Anywhere, whether it is in Kauranamoda, whether it is in Gashua, in Yobe, or whether it is in Sokoto, or whether it is somewhere in Iseyin, or somewhere at River State, Omok, or somewhere in Neke, the citizens of Nigeria are not enjoying. The only people who are enjoying these things, the Nigerian state as presently structured, are the politicians within the Nigerian state. That's why a House of Rep member will say that he will pay 50 million to make somebody disappear. That's the kind of structure we have created. Before, you said that kind of thing to I mean, how can you can't even do that? And I'm hoping that the House of Reps, after they have investigated this thing, will be able to come down with very serious. So no citizens of Nigeria is enjoying the state as the current Nigerian state because it's choking. The thing is choking. People are not allowed the kind of freedom. I heard it on your radio one day. In 1964, M.I.O. Okpara exported rice worth £6 million sterling from Cassia, Ebonyi State University, where the College of Agri-Science of Esut began. And one day we left the radio station in Enugu, Solid FM, and many years ago, I think 2018, and one man, Professor Okezie, he came to tell us a story. He said that one day M.I.O. Okpara, as Premier of Eastern Nigeria, got ready to go to the office, and the wife told him that there is no egg for breakfast. And he said the man was like, if the Premier of Eastern Nigeria cannot eat egg, what would then happen to the average citizen of Eastern Nigeria? He got to the office and put on a thinking cap. And that was how they started a hatchery that was exporting eggs all over Nigeria, all over West Africa. When in 1969, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, published that the Eastern Nigerian economy was the fastest growing economy in the world. It was a research. That research is still there at Michigan State University in the United States. It was not because of oil. No. It was because of the agriculture and other ancillary products. I have said it severally here. If we have irrigation in Ebonyi State, if it plants rice 3 times a year, every 3 months, don't need a dime from anywhere to survive. So this is why we submitted it that time, and it was not, the bill didn't come up, but this time the plan came to the plenary. So it's not, for me, is a progress. Is a progress that we are making.
Okay. You said something about derivation-based economy instead of the allocation-based. I want to get to all of that, what you were driving at when you mentioned that.
I mentioned now that in 1953, derivation means you derive, resources from your region. You derive resources from your state, and then you pay tax to the center.
Okay.
So the derivation was 100% by 1953. By then, we have not had independence. Apart from what the colonial masters used to take, they were in charge and all that. After all, the British government actually bought Nigeria from the Royal Niger Company, Turban, William Turban, I've forgotten the full name, I beg. William Turban Goldie, William Turban Goldie. He bought Nigeria for £860,000, the Nigerian territory, because they were just doing business here. So by 1953, the people kept 100% of what they derived, apart from what the white people take. By 1960, when we had independence, the derivation was 50%. So the regions kept 50% of what they derived, and they sent 50% to the center. By 1970, the thing had come down to 45. Because in the name of the war with Biafra in 1969, Gowon promulgated the Petroleum Decree of 1969 that began to bring the thing down. It continued down. At the point, it was 1.5%. At the point, it was 2% during the Second Republic or something. Mm-hmm. Then it was jacked up to 13%. I think it's still 13% up till now. So that each people, with whatever they derive, they only keep 13% and send the remaining one to the federal government for allocation, so that they can now allocate it. That's why Ike Kweremadu and many people have said it. He said we are operating a feeding bottle federalism. Just the same way you give feeding bottle to children.
Okay.
So that is what we mean by derivation. Derivation was originally you derive and you pay tax to the center, but now it is allocation. The Nigerian state owns everything. You remember the land use decree? The Nigerian state owns everything. This thing that we are calling National Union of Road Transport Workers. Do you know that it is 1978 decree passed by Obasanjo that gave these people? Maybe I'm shaking table now, but people who don't get bus, they don't get the bus, they didn't build the park, they are not the drivers, they don't own Hackney permit, and yet when a bus finish loading in Enugu now, going to Ebonyi, if he collects 1,000, 18 passengers, those people will sit down there and take 4,000.
The National Union of Road Transport Workers, yeah.
There is a decree that was passed in 1978, which they are flaunting. So this is just an example of the kind of things that you have. But when you have regional governments, that time we had, oh my God, when M.I. Okpara died in 1985, did you know that Ndi had to put his body in the morgue to go and build a small bungalow before they can take him home for burial? Because he was premier of today's 9 states, and yet he was interested in developing the territory. The fact to the point that he was not even thinking about all these things that will build estates here and there and here and there. Why? Because we have a constitution that practically plays God. Section 120 down to 23 allows the governor to spend money for 6 months before budget. Section 90, 91, 92, 93 allows the president to do the same thing. I don't know whether there's anything like that in any society, any constitution, anywhere in the world, where people are allowed to they have the leeway, the right to spend money, and we are complaining, we are saying, look, let us find a way of avoiding collateral damage. And we are saying no.
Okay.
I mean,
okay, Evangelist, I'll come in here. You know, when this argument came up in the Senate, like you said, they were divided, mostly the North against the South in terms of this continued push for regionalism. I can't go into the details of the arguments, but yes, they were sharply divided. And you talked about this derivation thing. It's also rearing its head again now that the president is beginning to push reforms in the tax sector. There are bills that have been pushed to the National Assembly, the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, the Tax Administration Bill, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill. The main grounds in all of this is the move or the amendment that is proposed for the distribution of the value-added tax to a derivation-based model. The North is saying that it's skewed against them. The 19 governors of the North came together saying that this is skewed against them, that they have arguments that the way that Nigeria is running its taxes now, we have something like the telecoms companies, for instance, who have customers spread across Nigeria, all the regions, but where they pay their taxes is maybe at the headquarters in Lagos. That if this model continues with the derivation-based model that the presidency is pushing, that it would shortchange other regions, and particularly the North. And, you know, there are several arguments around that. Do you think that with these kind of arguments that what we need is not the constitution amendments that want to happen, that the lawmakers want to make happen, but like some of the lawmakers have said, like Bamidele himself has said, that we need a new constitution entirely instead of trying to make constitution amendments?
In 2010, I attended a conference where I presented a paper, Transforming the Formless, the Inevitability of a New Constitution for the Survival and Development of Nigeria. So I have pushed that narrative before, and I had said that actually the Nigerian Constitution is very difficult, if not impossible, to amend, that it is like amending the devil. If you add DE, what will be there? The devil. If you remove D from devil, you have evil. If you remove E, you have vile. If you remove V, you still have ill. So why? So what do you have? Because these things are fundamental. That's why I said they are just scratching the surface. They are not addressing. They are avoiding the inevitable. If you give us a federation that does not include fiscal federalism, FIFCAL, if you give us that kind of federation, so why are they making that kind of argument? Because in the north they ban alcohol and they ban tobacco, and yet they want to get the VAT from alcohol and tobacco, just like we had to take the trouble here of piping crude oil to Kaduna to be able to refine it. I mean, something is wrong with us here. Instead of looking at solutions, in Nigeria we are still moving cattle instead of moving meat. We are still moving animals instead of moving meat. Animals that belong to private organizations, private individuals. Do we have as much cattle as Brazil or even Holland? We don't. But yeah, so they are leaving the real structural issue that we are raising and scratching the surface. The real derivation is that if you don't want to give us regionalism, then allow the states to take control of what they have and then pay tax to the center. That is how a federation runs. Power in a federal state, power in a federation is not vertical. It's not. There is nothing like a one power is up and the other one is down. No, power in a federal state is horizontal. But the Nigerian states created the constitution. That's the problem we're having. I've said it before on your radio. But the ideal thing is for the constitution to create the character of the states that will be run. But it is now the states that created the constitution for us. That is the basic problem. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested in all those tax. We are talking tax because we don't have a federal state. If we have a federal state, what the federating units will pay to the center will be taxed. They are like taxes too. They are derivations, so that they can use it to run things that that unite us, military, immigration, external affairs, things like that. These are the things why they create federal institutions. That's why the federal government exists. Now, federal government has given, for example, they say their own, their own minimum wage is 70. In Ebonyi is 75. In Enugu is 80. In Lagos is 85. Which means that's how things originally should be. But because these people will always go cap in hand every month to go to collect what came from them. And that is why we're having lazy leadership in Nigeria. People don't think at all. All you need is to wait and endure for 30 days. When 30 days comes, you go and collect. When you collect, you start sharing it with someone. This is the structure is fundamentally flawed. That's why I used to give this example. In 2015, Barack Obama said he was going to admit Syrian refugees to America. Within 48 hours, 13 states told him, well, Mr. Obama, of course you can invite Syrian refugees to America, but the only problem is they won't come to our state. Why would they do that? They created the United States. The United States didn't create them. So there is an extent. That's why, do you know that the federal constitution in America outlaws death penalty? Federal constitution. Only 16 states in America retains it in their constitution. The remaining 34 states, there are offenses you will commit, you go to the gallows. You can die. Why? Because they have their own constitution and they have their own laws.
Which is a true federal system, how it should operate.
That is how a federal system will run. We are running a federal system structured after the American. The First Republic, 1960 to 1966, was the cabinet system. This idea of picking somebody you like to be minister doesn't arise that time. The advantage is that before you can become a minister at the federal level, you must have won election. That's why they call the leader prime minister, first amongst equals. It's not the first, it's just the first among many.
All right.
That's why when the government collapses, everybody goes with it.
All right. Evangelist, we are talking about this, and earlier on the headlines this morning, we had that 32 states derived 55% of their revenue for the past month from the federal allocation. And, it boils down to what you were just saying about the states sitting idly for 30 days and waiting to collect the allocations from the federal system.
The example I gave of M.I. Okpara.
Yes.
The example.
Yes, I
how it was all over. How did Obafemi Awolowo build the first television station in Africa in 1959? From the cocoa, and it was managed properly. And it's, of course, you know that it will be easier for me to reach the administrator or the leader of Southeast here, if Southeast is a region. For me, it's easier for me to reach the person than for me to start traveling from here to Abuja.
Mm.
And when you have those kind of people derive what they have, you now discover there was an institute that gave me an award some years ago, and when they were analyzing, they said that out of the 774 local governments in Nigeria, that it was only one, I can't remember now, it was only one local government that you will say does not have something that they can extract, to sustain them. I can't remember that local government. But they said it's only one out of 774. Now the other, if you know the amount of lead that is being mined from Ebonyi State, if countries like Kenya that is surviving by tourism have that kind of thing, and yet the Nigerian people still get paid. Nigeria is the least paying country in Africa. Anywhere, whether it's in journalism, whether it is in education, whether it is in civil service. If I move from here now to Ghana, or if I'm going to, if I take leg, cross Waka, enter Port Novo from Badagry, I'll be earning more in Benenua University than I'm earning in Nigeria. And yet these people have these small things. Kenya, tourism. Look at what Ethiopian airline is doing all over the world. And yet Nigeria cannot maintain. So the Nigerian state appears to have been bought by a few individuals. And each time we talk about the restructuring or the regionalizing or the return of power to the people, these people will resist it. That's why only civil societies, when they come together genuinely, I'm not talking about civil societies that are looking for money from abroad so that they can use it to change their car or build a house. No. I'm talking about real civil societies. Only them can compel these people to do what is right. And that's why the kind of people we are electing, what are they discussing there? And instead of addressing issues that will bring about fundamental changes, you are talking about the tax derivation. Derivation is just a part of the original derivation.
Exactly.
You're talking about
exactly.
state police. State police is part of the original restructure. If you structure properly, there's no point talking about whether there will be state police. Of course, because regions will have a way of controlling their own security.
So all these bills are only treating the symptoms and not getting to the root cause of the issue.
I've said it before.
Yeah.
Can sit down at the roots. When they finish cutting the branches, shedding the leaves, and plucking the sometimes rotten and sometimes ripe fruits, they will come and meet me at the roots where I am. Because at the end of the day, when you cut the leaves, shed the fruits, cut the branches, even cut the stem, the inevitable. Return power to the Nigerian people. Return their lands. Return their resources. Return it. And then let them decide how everybody will be happy, or relatively happy. Not this one that only a few individuals, they just sit down and decide what happens. Why would somebody say he's going to pay 50 million to make one Nigerian who is doing an honest job to disappear? Only in Nigeria. My friend of the today has been writing a book which he titled Only in Nigeria. Each time he wants to publish it, another thing will happen. And it's chronicling things that can happen or has happened only in Nigeria, that has never happened anywhere in the world, where baboons and snakes swallow man.
All right. Like you said, the only conversation that is worth having now is the conversation around the new constitution and returning the country into a true federal system as it should be, as it obtains.
If we ground the constitution, it will cause anarchy. Even though South Africa did the same.
If we ground the constitution, yeah.
1 year, 6 months, I think, either 24 months or 18 months to wind up. They now called a unique conference of multi-ethnic nationalities, or they called a conference of the owners of South Africa, whether white or black. They now sat down and designed another constitution on the basis of which Nelson Mandela contested election. Because with the apartheid constitution, there was no way Mandela would have even contested to become president. But the Republic did something, they did something like this. The Nigerian people are refusing to address, and we are here in the southeast here, grounding our territory and thinking we are bringing a solution. Till the year 3000, it will not solve anything. It's only this kind of engagement, continuously insisting and engaging the people of other nationalities. When on 28th of June 2018, the four of these regions, the four of these zones visited the then Senate, led by the National Assembly, led by Bukola Saraki. They presented this thing. The Middle Belt was there, the South was there, the Southwest was there, the Southeast was there. Only the other two didn't go with them. And they told them 4 of the 6 zones in Nigeria are here. That it is the Nigerian people that are here. So this, until we begin to get the right type of representatives who will not be thinking about what they will earn. Was it not the Czechoslovakian parliament that looked at the parliament? They looked at Czechoslovakia and said, look, if we don't do something, this country will explode. And they decided to divide the country, Czech Republic and Slovakia. I'm not saying we should divide, but if we have to divide, it has to be a peaceful thing. But we can still coexist. The problem is the attitude of the people who are exercising power, who are exercising authority. They think they are doing it for maybe for their people, but it's not true. Their people are not even enjoying anything.
All right.
What difference does it make if Yakaze becomes Senate president? How does it translate to something better for everyone, not just me, that is his brother?
All right, Evangelist Joseph, we would pause the conversation with you at this point. A lot has been said. Like I said, I'm bewildered by that report that 32 states in the Federation got 55% of their revenue from the FARC, and questions.
I don't even know whether that statistics is very correct.
You believe it should be more than 55%?
It looks very small to me.
Okay.
Although these people, the taxation now is choking. The taxation within the states are very choking. So if the derivation they got from Abuja are reduced to 55, maybe it's because as a result of the taxation that they are giving, because before it used to be much more than that. Remember, Buhari had to release 713 billion to give to governors. They never get pay salaries when he took over. And ordinarily, without the National Assembly to approve the money, That is the structure of the Nigerian state. Anybody can just spend the money. Ordinarily, it shouldn't be so. So if it has reduced to only 55%, then it maybe boils down to, because they are still not in charge of most of these things within their territory.
So as much as they're asking, yeah, as much as they're asking questions around the fiscal sustainability, that's internal generated revenue against federal allocations, the question now is, how is that internally generated revenue coming about? Is it just taxes, or is there production improving in the states that would give them this 45%?
You can say that again. You can imagine here when the people were sharing papers in Abakaliki here to people who are doing POS, that they should pay 1,000 naira. And I asked them on radio here, when I was in one of the radio stations, I asked them, these people, POS is a bank, right? And they are running the POS, and then somebody comes to give you paper to pay 1,000 naira cash, that it is government revenue. And I asked them, this POS, is it not a bank? If it is 1 naira that they are supposed to pay as tax, can't they just transfer it to government account? Why would somebody be going about? It's like me, I want a particular bank to pay tax. Then I'll go to that bank and serve them paper so that they will give me cash. To do what? These are the kind of revenues where, people who helped in the elections, they help them. Well, Enugu State has appeared to have found a way of getting around it, so that every, allocation, every tax goes straight
digitally
to government coffers. They appear to have, but many states, like this example that I gave you now, it's just taxes. Production has not increased.
Okay.
Government officials are still building hotels.
Evangelist, let's go for a break. When we return, we'll open up this conversation to the parliament so that they join us right now.
Be able to have a short time to
yes, of course. Yeah, you will. All right, we are still here having a conversation with Evangelist Dr. Joseph Abu. Our conversation centers on the continued push for regional governance or regionalism with the recent developments. The Ministry of Regional Development is there. There are big questions around that ministry and what would be its functions. There are questions around fiscal federalism and how the North have come together to oppose some of the tax reforms being pushed by the Tinubu administration. There are 4 tax bills before the National Assembly right now, which are getting opposed by the 19 northern governors because of their concerns as to what the workings of these bills would be, all right, and the powers it would give the individual states in the federation. But let's go for a break. When we return, we'll continue taking calls, and or we will begin taking calls and getting your thoughts about this conversation. Do stay tuned. FM. We will begin to take calls on today's session. Let's get in the opinions of parliamentarians on the continued push for regional governance through federalism and all of that. Let's get you to comment on some of the things that have been spoken about this morning by Evangelist Dr. Joseph Abu, or your own original thoughts about this. 08096 3200945 or 09128945945. Call in and share your opinion. Hello, good morning. All right. Hello, good morning. Good morning, sir.
I greet you, Elder Igwe Austin is my name. I call from.
Welcome, Elder. Go ahead.
I think with the translating economic, political, security, and social problems in Nigeria, this is time for us to try regional governance. We've been dependent on the center too long, depending on one man to determine what happens throughout the whole Nigeria. Nigeria is so vast that one person cannot, being the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, cannot determine what happens in the country, that others should have regionally to plan their economy, to help in planning their security, to help in planning their safety. We don't know why our senators shouldn't maybe think about it, that we are no longer talking about maybe individual interests. We are now talking about how to survive as a country. We cannot survive unless we plan the future of Nigeria, so that there will be peace in this country. There will be abundance in this country. This is a country that is blessed by the Almighty God. But the problem of bad governance, the problem of insecurity, the problem of insensitivity of the government on the welfare of people has affected us so much as the people. And we are crying, and we are now on our knees. Why can't we try something else? We've tried this central government for years, and it didn't work. And people are suffering, and people are saying, please, let's try something else. Why are we afraid of regional governance? People can work on their own. People can do something quite different regionally. And let's say, those that are not doing well, then other regions can.
All right, it's your time. Thank you, Rigos. Thank you for joining us. Hello, good morning. Hello? Hello, good morning.
Yeah, I greet you. I greet my brother, Dr. Evangelist Abu. I greet him.
All right, go ahead.
Bernard from Transit. Look, we cannot. He makes very vital points. I believe he reminded us that we've been operating this derivation principle,
allocation
system, during all the 60s, until when General Aguirre took over. He took over after the coup. The first decree he promulgated was decree, I think 31, either 31 or 33, abolishing this regional government. Since then, all the efforts have been made to revert back to it. Then, nothing is not in any reform. Again, why? Because a lot of people, like you say, those that are benefiting don't want us to go back to it again. They are benefiting, they like that to the bottle system of enjoyment. They said no. After all, Cocoa in Western states, then they use it to build the first radio television station in the Western Nigeria. Okoladi is known as Eastern part of Nigeria. And no, we are not pyramid. But the politicians 17 governors of the Northerners. They rallied down and kicked against the new tax reform. Why are they holding that meeting? They know that down south we are not together. There are different, camps in the south, not like the north. So it appears that the Northerners are more united and that once anything they move in the House of Assembly, anything they kick against will be as they want. Will stand to their truth. Because they know we don't have one voice in the South. We don't. So it beats me anytime I hear that they kicked against something.
All right.
They kicked it, and because they know that they believe that the South cannot come together rather than to ask why.
All right. Savannah, your opinion is noted. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is Madina calling from Enugu.
Okay.
Now, let's not all forget that it was those matters we are discussing today that started the Nigerian Civil War, the Nigerian Biafra War. Exactly. That was what the Jew was, rather something much similar. Agreement here had to go on at that point. Restructuring through federalism. Let's get back how it all started. Something go on with the religion. And now, if I understand something clearly, because your guest spoke well. Now, the problem now is that the people that are so senators, some people asking why they're not doing this or that. No, like I said to journalists, these are agents. Okay? They come there, you have to ask yourself why we are talking about the cost of governance. They spend an unreasonable amount of money paid to this lawmaker of senators. So huge, and you wonder, it's not common sense to say, let's reduce our salary so that people can eat. The reason that they pay this money is so that they can look the other way. While the international bodies continue to run the country. That is why they will not allow us to have a true federalism. They don't want us to control our own economy. And I'm talking about international cabals who are behind what's going on, in complicit with our own people. And they use through their divine and conquer tactics to make all these things possible. And your guest talked about trying to make some kind of formal applications or something like that to each bodies from federal government. And for me, I have to be pessimistic, but that won't do no good. Unless the people who are doing this to us, unless they can find a way to continue milking our resources, manipulating our economy, manipulating our minds, that's the only way they can grant what your guest talking about. Grant us what was the word they used again? There was something they just keyword what we were looking for. Okay, whatever we're looking for now, that's the only way they're going to give it to us. But this people, the truth is that no man who exploits you will give you back your freedom without a fight.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Hello. Good morning. Keep the calls coming. 09128945945. Hello. Good morning. Good morning, sir. Go ahead, Sir Ben.
We could go back to the history. I think 1963, when they had to have the Middle Belt region, they wanted to create with the region. Well, the North said they want to be one identity, Southern Nigeria. You have the Southern Nigeria, and then when they created the West, when they were attacking, and then they created Midwestern State. Now, you could find out within the North and the South, you see, in 1963, had it been they created another region, Niger Delta region, as they did in the West. Midwest region. We wouldn't have had all this problem while, cricket, dancing around, dancing in limbo. I pray that we should not be as Somalia. Well, let's work out to build our nation. It's really what we are experiencing, what we are going through. Let's try as much as we can, especially in the House of Assembly, how to build a nation.
All right. Thank you so very much, Anya. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. I can hear you. What's your name? It's in it too good. You'd have to call back. There is a lot of noise where you are calling us from. Hello. Good morning. Good morning, sir. Okay, Chika, go ahead.
One of our problems, I think in short, the major problem we have is the type of government we are facing. We call it democracy. And ironically, it is not the real democracy, because we think that it is America that brought democracy. No, it was the Greece. So, back before during the Darius the King, that is Darius the Great in Persia. It was when they were fighting with the Greece to conquer Greece, that after Greece defeated them, then the Greece, all the Greek republics gathered together to form one, and they now introduce what they call democracy. That democracy means that they are representatives, as we have members of the House of Representatives now. That is what they had. They call them demons. Demons. And when you added crisis, that is to punch democracy. So it is not just our own freedom of speech. No, it is the people being represented. Every segment of the people being represented, and they don't speak the mind of the area they are representing. So I don't know why our representatives here are not representing us. So do you think that the federal government will listen to us? It is our mouthpiece. That is our representative.
Okay.
And they will come and pass it without our knowledge. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Hello, good morning. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good morning, Odoze.
Good morning. Thank you. I wanted Benjamin this morning. Good morning to our analysts in the house. You see, bottom line, I'm going to make it as brief as possible, because it's French history, we've said all that before, over and over again. And I will start from Aburi's convention. In Aburi, we said we should go back and have a confederation. A confederation, so it has come into true federalism. Because what we've been doing is really natural government before we began to bring in the political and what have you. If we have the courage, and I'm sure the way things are going, our brothers up country begin to reason with us, and then we decide to have a confederation. Then, of course, or we begin to do true federalism. Put them together, they're about the same thing. You don't have to start saying, because no one gives you anything on a platter. Since we don't have any arms to fight, we use our mouths to explain things the way they should be. Put your cards on the table. Tell them the truth of our situation in Nigeria. We need to have a confederation or true federalism that we have in response to public. Have a very good day, and thank you.
Thank you, Odoze, for joining us. We'll now connect back to Evangelist Dr. Joseph Abo. Let him wrap up this conversation for us. It's been interesting getting some insights from our callers this morning. It seems everybody is in support of the move for true federalism and regional autonomy in all ramifications. Let's see if we can get Evangelist Joseph Abu back on the line. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I know you listened through. The calls have come in. A lot of people have spoken. They had different perspectives to this. Some people believe it's the same thing that has been the bone of contention since the Civil War times. And up until now, we're still grappling with the same thing. Some people believe it's the mistakes of some of the early military leaders that have put us in this quagmire, so to speak, at this point in time. But what I want to get from you is your recommendations according to the memorandum that has now been pushed to the National Assembly. What are the key recommendations, and how do we make sure that this issue of constitution gets a speedy attention that it deserves? Hello? Hello?
It's a surrender mindset. We don't, especially in our climate here, we have got used to damage or blowing something up, or I don't know how to put it, but I'm not talking about destruction. We have got used to breaking things, or such that when it comes to, engineering, social engineering, we tend to become very weak. When I was saying many years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, that we won't get anywhere running around on the streets. Nobody listens to me. Or well, very few people listening, but the vast majority thought that we could bring change just by running around on the streets. And right now, that's why we are saying that we must continue to engage. We must continue to engage, because at the end of the day, number one, we have fought a war. Even when the leaders were in charge of our territory, I don't know whether you understand what I mean. Ojukwu, for example, was in charge of eastern Nigeria. The governmental structures are in his hands. And yet, certain things could not happen. And so, it only becomes, that's why we are a Biafran group. Mobbing is also a Biafran group. That's why we said our operational name is Movement of Biafrans in Nigeria. But we want to manage, networking, to be able to reach out to other people, even within our territory and outside our territory. If we get a regional government in place, what it will do is that it will liberate the minds of the people from them and us. We have done a lot of them and us for so long, and it's not helping us. Sabrina was talking about that. He was talking about decree number 34 of May 24, 1966. That was decree number 34 when Aguiyi-Ironsi promulgated that decree to unify Nigeria is in line with the structure of the military. It was just trying to be that runs a hierarchy, you understand? But the moment he did that, the North said no, they don't want that. And that was what led to the pogrom 5 days later. 5 days later, May 29. So we need to start learning how to do engagement, to get the right types of people, to go. Do you know that if Southeast members of the caucus of the National Assembly stage a walkout for 5 minutes, that is going to make global news and is going to create more impression that this thing is, but our people are not prepared to stake. We need to begin to get leaders who are prepared to stake it all. Ojukwu, when he was going on exile from this country, from Biafra, on January 12, 1970, he left here with only $100. Are you saying there are no things in Biafra land that he could have carted away? We need to begin to look for people who will give us this regional structure. So when we have Southeast, South-South, Southwest, North Central, Northeast, Northwest, they become regions. They have governments of their own. Now the states will still remain. If they want to create more, they will create more of the states for administrative convenience. If they want to create local, that was the challenge I had, even though it was just federalism Nigeria. Now you see, they said local government will getting money direct from Abuja. Now governors are looking for opportunities to corner the same money again. Why? Because there are no constitutional provisions. It's only one constitution that is doing all that. But each society can decide on their own. The 6 states in Southwest, for example, can decide because they have some degree of cultural, integration to do this or do that. The people in the South, because they have this contingency to the sea, can decide on certain things. So there are several things each of those, people in those zones that we propose should become region can do to create their own world and live better. And then it will also reduce this migration because people are leaving this country in droves. People are going. And we want to reduce that. Where are our nurses and doctors? Where are our lecturers? That's why I told you, if I work across the Republic, I will earn more. And it is because, just like the paymaster said, even when you look at the money that these people are earning at Abuja, it's stupendous. I mean, in 2015, we did a study and we found that an American senator earns $174,000 per annum. That time, 2015. A Nigerian senator was earning $181,000 point something a month. While an American senator was earning $174,000 per annum. So when you look at the stupendous, and so when you ask them to begin to, do things, pass laws, these things are very, very easy when you have people who have patriotic mindset, who are thinking about how to save their society and not just get a Ghanaian money for their families. We have had people in the north before who had this push before. I mean, if you remember some of the leaders in the north, you remember the leader of the Talakawas, what is his name now? These are people who, if they had opportunity, they will say, look, let us, because you remember when Senator Itaian said that 83.5% of the oil wells in the Niger Delta is in the hands of the Northwest. So that is part of the reasons why you want to have fiscal federalism, so that all these things will go back. And they forget that more money can be made in agriculture than from oil.
All right.
More money, the richest people in America are farmers, not the oil barons in Texas. So if we do this thing, it will begin to reduce the amount of agitation, both in the north, in the south, in the east, everywhere, because the control, whether you like it or not, the people we are calling leaders, they are losing. In fact, they have lost control of the Nigerian state. That's why somebody can wake up in the morning and make an announcement, and we are all afraid. We go and sit down at home. People that have no face, you don't even know their name. Why? It's because of the nature of the state that we have been operating in the past few years. And we cannot solve the problem by going into another war, by breaking. Listen, the international community is interested in what happens in Nigeria. So if anybody thinks that they wake up one morning, it's not true. It's not like that anywhere in the world. Wherever anything is taking place, there must be a consideration of internal security order, because if they don't, I didn't want to run that line that about imperialist structure. That is what anyone will be shy about it now. Why did they kill Gaddafi? They killed Gaddafi because but our leader, you remember that it's only in Nigeria that when they want to punish us, they say they will ban them from coming to their country. And so, oh my God. So this is punishment. Right. Because of the kind of mentality, servitude mentality that we have, that if I can't travel abroad. So why would a Nigerian president go abroad for medical checkup? So what happens to Joseph when Joseph gets sick? What happens to Yagazi? So we need to begin to find a situation where we raise leaders who will insist. That's why nothing is going to be given to us, and let nobody think they are doing us a favor. Okay. That is how Nigeria began. Okay. Nigeria began as a federation. Because the multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious this thing in Nigeria is vast. And that is the only way we can exist together.
Evangelist, we've run out of time. We've run out of time. We'll have this conversation again. I promise you, because this conversation about there are
very many aspects.
There are very many aspects of it.
Before Iwanya would die, they had given us because his PA was coming to the meeting that we used to have at our NSA Secretariat in recent times. 2 months, because we had a discussion, our leader, Barrister Mekesri, and one other person visited him, and we presented this structure, we presented this roadmap, and he said he bought into it, and we said his immediate this thing was, please do all you can to restore the peace and dignity of Igbo land. And he was sending his PA, Dr. Anyanwu, to join us in the meeting at the NSA Secretariat. 2 months later, he passed on. So we want to see what we can do. We're trying to reach out to Igbo leaders to see how we can come together and then bring our children, our young children out, together again. This place used to be the best. Each time I think about this place and what my father used to tell me, I shed tears, because we can achieve anything we want, anything at all, including going to the moon if we want.
All right.
But we need to come together to be able to do that. Thank you very much. I hope we'll have this discussion again.
Of course, we will. Thank you very much, Evangelist Dr. Joseph Abu, and
parliamentarians.
Yeah, have a nice day to you over there in Abakaliki. Thank you, parliamentarians, for making it an interesting conversation this morning. Evangelist Joseph Abu, espousing on many things. We'll continue this conversation some other time. So thank you. It's a wrap for today. See you tomorrow. I'm Yaga.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Onye na-anụ olu m ọshwa ana m ekele unu. Ekele shunika sunu gide ma gide nsa. Good evening, everyone. Akwa ntabunu kan amama de na shigo rice mboshu ka m na-eriju gbodo eho. Ma unu okwu nu ma mu wotere abo ọshwa bụ okwu na-echu kumu na liver. Ya bụ okwu na imaga ọ na-echu kumu na liver. Ni mo ni eriju do ga eho. Digre ma uni ya no nkure ya bo kuku no hwe okun manyere bo munu ni le bo gbasara ohwa, especially ndị abụghị